Hello students, welcome to Legacy IAS Academy. In today's video, we are going to discuss about Cyclone Michaung, the cyclone that is just about to strike the eastern coast of India in the states such as Odisha and Andhra Pradesh. So we are going to discuss everything that you need to know about the atmospheric phenomena of cyclone. So first of all, to give you the brief background, recently the deep depression, that was a low pressure system that was developing in the Bay of Bengal region, it has intensified into a cyclonic storm, that is Michaung, and is expected to become a severe cyclonic storm today. It is likely to cross the South Andhra Pradesh coast with a maximum sustained wind speed of 80 to 90 kilometers per hour, gusting to 100 kilometers per hour as a severe cyclonic storm. Later we will discuss about how the categorization of cyclone is done. Cyclone is characterized on the basis of their velocity, and whenever the velocity is more than 80 kilometers per hour, then it is called as a severe cyclonic storm. The system could result in heavy rains, as generally seen in the case of cyclone, in the parts of southeastern Odisha as well as the coastal regions of the state. Apart from that, in some regions of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu, we can also see the effects of cyclone. Tamil Nadu government, taking that into cognizance, has declared a public holiday in 4 districts, that is Chennai, Pattu, Tiruvallur and Kanchipuram. Now let us try to understand that first of all how the cyclones are named. The current cyclone is called as Michaung. So what is the reasoning behind that? Now the naming of cyclone is done slightly differently in different regions of the world, but in the case of North Indian Ocean, it is the center, original center, or what we can say World Meteorological Organization, that is situated in Delhi, is responsible for naming the cyclone. In this regard, basically these are the countries such as Bangladesh, India, Iran, Maldives, Myanmar, Oman, and some other countries which are also situated in the northern Indian Ocean. The countries especially that are affected by the cyclones, they are asked to provide list of 30 names. For example, Bangladesh, as you can see, has given 30 names. India, Iran, Maldives, Myanmar, and Oman similarly. Now what happens? The countries are arranged first of all, as you can see, in the alphabetical order, and the first cyclone, this list as you can see, is effective from April 2020. So the first cyclone that will happen after April 2020 will be named from the first row and the first column, that is Nisarg. Then the second name will be chosen, that is given by India, that is the first row, second column, and then similarly like that. So if we talk about since April 2020, so many cyclones has struck the coastline of the northern Indian Ocean states, and currently if you look at the cyclone, this is called as Michaung. Now, Michaung is a name that has been given by Myanmar, and even right now we can predict the next cyclone that will strike the northern Indian Ocean will be named as Rimal, that is given by Oman. So that is how the naming of cyclone is done. Slight variations you will see in the North Atlantic Ocean around the coastline of the United States, where the cyclone is named and the names are not generally repeated unless and until they are names are generally repeated unless and until they are very destructive kind of cyclone. On the other hand, if you talk about northern Indian Ocean, the name of cyclones are not generally repeated. Next, we talk about the path or this is what you can see, the course of cyclone. We can see that as per the prediction of Indian Meteorological Department, cyclone will start somewhere from here, slightly to the eastern side of the Andhra coast, and then it will go in the corner region, or what you can say the coastal regions of Tamil Nadu, and then will make landfall in the state of Odisha. Now landfall is basically that place on the land where the cyclone first reaches after the sea. Now let us try to understand the mechanism of tropical cyclone. So first of all, for development of tropical cyclone, we need a very high sea surface temperature. Due to the high sea surface temperature, we have development of low pressure area. Due to the development of low pressure area, the wind start to gust from all the sides toward this low pressure area. But at the same time, we know that there's a Coriolis force that comes into play, which rather than letting the wind move in a straight path, it tries to move the wind in what we can call as a curved path. Thus, rather than filling this low pressure gap, the wind from all the sides start to revolve around this low pressure center, and since the temperature is higher, wind becomes warm, and since it is sea surface, it carries a lot of moisture. So this warm and moist wind start to rise in the upward direction, rotating around this low pressure center in what we can call as a spiral kind of movement. As the wind rises up, the moisture present in the wind start to basically what we can say condense in the upper atmosphere, due to which we have heavy rainfall that we record. The regions where you will see the development of tropical cyclones, obviously it is called as tropical cyclone because these originate between the latitude somewhere between 5 degrees to 30 degrees north and 5 degrees to 30 degrees south. The reason why this cyclone do not develop in the equatorial region is because the Coriolis force is zero, and due to this the wind is not able to rotate as it is required in the cyclonic system. So the major regions are in North Atlantic Ocean along the coast of North America, where we have hurricanes. Then we have South America, again in tropical region. Then we have Indian Ocean, where it is known by the name of tropical cyclones. Then we have the Pacific Ocean, especially the Western Pacific Ocean along the coastline of Japan and China, where it is referred as typhoons. And in Australia, also we have a cyclonic region where locally it is known by the name of Willy Willy. So Willy Willy, hurricanes, tropical cyclones, typhoon, all these are basically name of the tropical cyclone, but presented differently in different regions of the world. Now, as we have discussed, the categorization of cyclone, especially as done by IMD, can be presented in this particular chart. Now, the cyclones which are basically, or the wind which are having low pressure system, but the wind speed is less than 51 km per hour, these are referred as depression. And this is generally the first stage of tropical cyclone. As the wind speed picks up, it can convert into deep depression, then to cyclonic storm. And the present cyclone that is we are talking about, it is expected to have a wind velocity of around 90 to 100 kilometers per hour, and that is why we can see it will come in the category of severe cyclonic storm. If wind velocity becomes more high, 118 to 221, it is called as very severe, and if wind velocity becomes more than 222 km per hour, then it is a very destructive kind of cyclonic system and is referred as super cyclonic storm. Now, this super cyclonic storm is something that is very rare phenomena. It happens once or twice in a decade, and whenever it happens, it causes massive loss to the life, economic infrastructure, as well as the other other infrastructure as well. The most famous or infamous super cyclone that has struck India was in the year 1999, where it caused lot of losses, both in terms of human casualty as well as in the terms of economic losses in the coastline of Odisha. One other thing that you should note about, that when we're talking about the measurement of the wind velocity, it is not that even if wind speed reaches to that extent for few seconds, it can be categorized as that cyclone. The wind velocity that is mentioned here in front of each of the cyclonic system should be maintained at least for average 3-minute duration, then only categorization is done. Now, based on this categorization and based on the intensity of cyclone, IMD then presents what we can say warning. However, if we talk about the similar kind of classification we see in other countries as well. For example, in USA, rather than having very severe or super severe, the cyclone is categorized as category 1, category 2, category 3 and category 4, which is based on a very famous scale that is called as Saffir-Simpson scale. So category 1 hurricane, as we have discussed, it is called in the North Atlantic region, is if the wind velocity is mentioned here in the miles per hour. So category 1, 2, 3 and 4, the category 4 hurricane, that was Katrina, that happened somewhere in the mid 2000s. That was one of the most destructive cyclone that affected the coastline of USA around the Miami region and this Florida region. So that was category 4 hurricane due to the wind velocity rising more than 130 to 156 miles per hour. Now, based on the intensity of cyclone, IMD issues warning to the affected area. The warning is basically color coded in nature and it ranges from green at the lower level to red at the highest level. If the green if the green alert is issued, that means there is no severe weather expected. If yellow alert is issued, that means it is a warning for the people of the region to be aware that there is a moderate risk of severe or low risk of extreme weather occurring. That means the people are expected to remain alert and ensure that they have access to the latest weather forecast. Especially in terms of fishermen, it is important for them to have the understanding about this color coded warning so that they can decide whether to venture out in the sea or not. Similarly, if amber or orange alert is declared, that means the people have to be prepared. There is a high risk of severe or a moderate risk of extreme weather occurring. Remain vigilant and make sure you access the latest weather forecast. Take precaution wherever possible. And the worst is the red alert, that is when the action is required in proactive level. So there is a high risk of an extreme weather event occurring. Remain extra vigilant and ensure you access the latest weather forecast, that is common. Now follow orders about any advice given by the authorities under all circumstances and be prepared for extraordinary measures. And if we talk about this particular cyclone, since it is a severe cyclonic storm, in many areas IMD has issued a red alert in this case. So this is the color coded warning system. Now the question comes that India has such a huge coastline, as you can see from the map here, and it is surrounded by two major seas, Arabian Sea on the west and Bay of Bengal in the east. Now, many times you might have heard about that largely it is the eastern states of India that is most affected by cyclone. The reason is that there is a higher number of cyclones in Bay of Bengal as compared to Arabian Sea. If you talk about, they are relatively more frequent as well and intense as well as compared to Arabian Sea. And if you calculate the ratio, what we find that if 4 number of cyclones are developing in Bay of Bengal, only 1 cyclone will develop in the Arabian Sea. So the ratio is 4:1. The reason why higher number of cyclones develop in Bay of Bengal is because first of all it has shallow depth as compared to the Arabian Sea. So due to this, the temperature or the sea surface temperature of this ocean or this particular part of sea is much more higher, which is a very conducive factor for development of tropical cyclone. That means higher the sea surface temperature, more the probability of development of tropical cyclone, and high intensity also can be associated with such systems. Second, it has a funnel shape, as you can see from here. Due to this, when wind converges in this area, they pick up a very high speed, and as they pick up a very high speed, if sea surface temperature is conducive enough, there is very high probability that it will convert into a destructive cyclone. And third, obviously, cyclone, as we have discussed, the outer part of cyclone that is called as rain band region is made up of very dense clouds and rainfall occurs there, and that is directly associated with the amount of water vapor or moisture available in the atmosphere. Now, amount of moisture depends on the rate of evaporation, which again depends on the amount of water available in the water bodies. And since most of the Indian rivers, 90% of river volume of Indian landmass is basically entering into the Bay of Bengal. So that is why more river water flow, more water availability, more moisture, more moisture. That means there will be huge amount of rainfall associated with the cyclonic system. So what we can say is the convergence of winds in Bay of Bengal combined with, as we discussed, Coriolis force resulting from the Earth rotation creates an environment that is suitable for cyclogenesis, that is the generation or formation of cyclone. These converging winds form areas of low pressure which can develop into tropical disturbances and cyclones, as we have discussed. If you look at the what we can say, the cyclone intensity that India basically cyclone vulnerability map, we can say that we can draw along the coastline of India. So as we can see, the entire eastern coast of India is in red zone. Red zones mean there is very high probability of cyclones and cyclone developing and cyclone affecting. That means degree of vulnerability is very higher. And here and there you will see blue regions. The blue regions refer to high vulnerability. On the other hand, since the number of cyclone, intensity of cyclone in Arabian Sea is much more lower, that is why you can see large part of this region is having green region. That means it is having a moderate vulnerability, except few regions such as Kutch and Kathiawar region in Gujarat. So that is because of the differences in the Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. So that is all about this particular video. I hope you understood about the current relevance of the cyclone that is about to strike the eastern coast of India, and overall general understanding about a very interesting but devastating weather phenomena that is cyclones. Thank you very much.